Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Today's Rapid Fire Friday here on Financial Issues, and our phone lines are already open. So if you're listening to the live version of the show, which is 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern Time, you can get your call queued up now. The number 610-363-1110. Well, if you're in the mood to ask questions, what might you ask about? There's lots of things to talk about today. Our focus is on good stewardship. We are a stewardship ministry. We teach people how to be a good steward based on the wisdom that is found in the scripture. Our main focus is defunding darkness and funding the light. So we defund darkness by teaching you how to adopt a biblically responsible investment strategy where you're screening out the companies of corporate America that are using shareholder dollars that you would invest to promote a dark agenda. We also encourage you to be good stewards by funding the light. That is strategically deploying the resources, the financial resources that God has trusted you with into kingdom ministries. So, great kingdom ministry to do that, to deploy your dollars into is Financial Issues. It is our last month of our fiscal year. We are officially launching our year-end campaign next week, but we have had sort of a soft launch all month. We are giving away a couple of resources to anyone who donates, and we're hoping to increase our monthly soldiers. That's people who donate to the ministry on a monthly basis. A suggested amount is $20 a month, but whatever the Lord leads is great for us. And we'll give you a PDF about generational planning that speaks to estate planning, along with another resource to help you get started. So definitely consider doing that. On today's show, we're going to talk about the difference between being wise, the difference between frugality and stinginess, and we'll talk about the most important headlines of the week, helping you to get in the know. And we hope that you have lots of questions to call in today. 610-363-1110. We do have quite a few questions to get through from our website. So if you don't call, we've definitely got some things to talk about, but we love to get those live calls and have that live interaction. 610-363-1110. Our stewardship verse today comes from Psalm 112:5. A good man deals graciously and lends. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Seth, what were your thoughts?
This is a good one, Shana. Definitely highlights two of our core values. That'd be generosity, one, and wisdom is the other one. And I think these are core to us because they're core to God. They're close to the heart of God. If we can succeed, Shana, at teaching people how to be generous and wise with their money, these two qualities, I think we'll have done very well. So that's our hope for you all, of course, here. Yeah. So speaking of that question you asked earlier, Shana, about frugality versus stinginess, I think there might be some in our audience who might be confused by these two. Frugality just being prudent and wise with what we spend and how much we spend, and then stinginess, which is clinging to our money in kind of a greedy, tight-fisted way. I think there can be confusion here because they're similar in that, those who exhibit these qualities will usually just refrain from spending money willy-nilly. So that's the similar part of these two, but they're obviously very different. My question for you, Shana, to open is how? How is financial prudence different from being stingy?
Well, what we've got here is another heart issue. Those are the things, the scripture tells us that God looks at the heart of a man. And at the heart of this issue lies the questions: whose is it and what's it for? Speaking of money, who owns it all? That's the Lord. What's it for? Well, God gives us money for many different reasons, and he expects us to use it wisely. But it's always helpful for me to look words up because I find that sometimes my understanding or experience with a word tends to color the intended meaning of the word. Sometimes I interpret it wrong based on my own experience. So prudence involves careful and sensible management of resources, and it focuses on spending money wisely and ensuring that expenditures are necessary and beneficial. So those are the key words there: necessary and beneficial. A prudent person is mindful of financial decisions. They balance their personal needs with potential to help others without being wasteful. So the greatest commandment that Jesus says when he was asked is to love God with everything, our mind, heart, soul, and strength. That includes we should love God with our money. So how do we love God with our money? Well, it's already all his anyway, and all the other money in the world is his too, so he doesn't need my money. But I can be willing to show God that I want him more than anything money could buy by being willing to deploy, and that's the key word there, deploy his money wherever he leads me to deploy it. So the root of prudence is knowledge of God's love for us, and that knowledge cultivates an appropriate response, which is love for God. The second commandment, second greatest commandment, according to Jesus, is to love yourself and others. So we get to use the resources that God gives us to bless ourselves and to bless others. In contrast, stinginess is characterized by an excessive reluctance to spend money. And that reluctance to spend money often results in lack. So lack for oneself and others around you. A stingy person may avoid spending even on necessary items. So, money has no value in and of itself. It's just a store of value. The only thing valuable about money is what you exchange it for. So stinginess is characteristic of one who lacks generosity. The behavior is typically driven by a desire to hoard money rather than a thoughtful approach to financial management or deployment of those resources. If we bury it in the ground or put it in the bank, we can find places in Scripture where that's putting it in the ground, burying it in the ground is not good stewardship. But if we can build up enough money, a lot of times we think in our human understanding, we won't have to rely on or trust anyone else. That's the financial independence that we hear so much about from the world. So if financial independence is your goal, congratulations, you've just made money an idol for yourself, and you have become a slave to money, and money is a very harsh taskmaster. And spoiler alert, the money won't satisfy you, and it will never be enough. So to sum it up, prudence is a sign of good financial stewardship, and it's indicative that we honor and respect the giver of those resources, while stinginess, on the other hand, reveals a heart that is either selfish or has a lack of empathy for others. So the standard here is prudence. That's what we strive for. The extremes are frivolity, spending money foolishly, and stinginess, which leads to lack. So those two extremes are to be avoided, and prudence is to be sought.
Well said, Shana. That's good. Speaking of frivolity, some might argue, they might push back that, financial prudence just isn't worth it. They'll say things like money's meant to be spent. How would you respond to that?
Well, I would agree. It's I just said money in and of itself has no value, so it is meant to be spent, but it is not all meant to be spent today. Some of it is meant to be spent in the future. So, God gives us good reasons to save money and invest money for the future. It's just irresponsible, to spend money just for the sake of spending it. So my first thought when I was pondering this question, Judas came to mind. Specifically, Judas's reaction when Mary poured out the fragrant oil that cost a whole year's wages when she poured that out on Jesus' feet. He shamed Mary and accused her of not caring for the poor. And really, he was not only accusing her, but he was accusing Jesus too for letting her waste that oil. So, we really want to think about those things whenever we're thinking about money.
Yeah, well said, Shannon. How about that sweet spot, what you said, of holding what we have with open hands, being generous, but also thinking carefully about every purchase we make? How do we hit that spot?
Yeah. Well, maybe we should spend less time thinking about every single purchase we make and think more about God, because knowing God's nature will lead us to make good decisions, not only about money, but about everything. And obedience to God's word trumps sacrifice every time. So we should show God that we believe what he says about money, that it's his, and he will deploy it however he chooses. Well, I don't know if we have time to squeeze in that last little bit, but I think it's kind of important. So we'll pick up on it when we come back, and then we'll get you up to speed. We'll get you in the know. So hang with us. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more financial issues. The phone lines are open. You can be second in the call queue if you call 800, not 800, 610-363-1110. My mind just went totally blank. All right. Hang on, folks. We're going to take a break. We'll be back.
One of the emphases of preborn has been ultrasound in two ways: an ultrasound machine if a pregnancy clinic doesn't have one, and then an ultrasound session, which we underwrite hundreds of thousands of those. We've seen over and over again the dramatic results that when a woman encounters her baby for the first time and hears that heartbeat, she realizes the magnitude of what's happening here, that there is somebody else, that's her baby. So this is why preborn pushes out ultrasound as much as we possibly can. Preborn has seen over 200,000 babies saved, over 59,000 people come to Christ, populating earth and eternity, life for this life and life forever. Save the baby's life, but save the mother's life so that she can lead that baby to Christ. If we're bringing people into this world and the mother doesn't receive Christ and the child is born and the child lives its life and doesn't receive Christ, this is not a good end. And so we have to have the gospel as part and parcel, and really the heartbeat of what preborn is.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, folks. Hey, Shana, before we get to this question here, I do have some really good news. So we do have a prize for today for our first couple callers, Shana. Got a great gray FISM t-shirt here. So for the next caller, as well as Michelle in there, that's your prize for today. Pretty exciting.
Looks like somebody's taking you up on it.
Someone calling in right now, yep. Shana, just the final question for this conversation, and it has been a good one. I appreciate it. How do we apply these principles of frugality and wisdom to our strategy when we look for places to put new money or add to a position or redeploy dollars elsewhere?
Yeah, I would say just focus on obedience. Just make sure that you're being obedient first, that we are giving back to God what is his, what he has asked for. He doesn't need the money. Yeah. He wants to see our heart. He wants to see if we trust him enough to actually do what he says. So, we should never eat our own seed. You've kind of heard that as kind of a farming metaphor. If you eat your seed, you're not going to grow anything for the future. Nor should we try to invest it. So we should always give God back whatever is his, even if it's just a little bit, and make sure that we're not trying to be self-righteous or hypocritical, because that's really what Judas was kind of called out on whenever he said that. He was pretending to care about the poor and saying, this is just wasteful, and we could have put that in the money bag and, help the poor. So what does that look like in today's world? Well, we could pretend that we're being prudent as a cover for our own stinginess. So let's propose that we make the excuse that if well, I'm going to hold off giving right now because I'm going to invest it all. I'm even going to invest biblically responsibly. So I'm going to be doing something good with it, and I'm going to invest it now so that I can give more later. Well, if that's the case, if we make excuses for reasons why we can't be obedient to what God's asking us to do, first and foremost, we might get the same verdict that Judas got when he tried to shame Mary for pouring out her love on Jesus. And in Matthew 12:6, it tells us exactly why Judas said what he said. His heart was exposed, his motives were exposed for shaming Mary and, saying that she was being frivolous. Matthew 12:6 said, "This he said," referring to Judas, "not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and he had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it." So, kind of a scathing rebuke there. I know we all would do well to look into our own hearts and really examine our own motives. So that's the way that we do that. Yep. Well, at Financial Issues, we help you stay in the know about the financial issues of the day. We help keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues. So I've got quite a few takeaways from this week. Some of the economic reports that we got, and then, of course, we did have a presidential debate, which I guess is not really economic news, so I guess we'll have to save that for later. I don't know
if
all of you watched it.
That it wasn't really a debate either. It was more a gang up, but anyway.
It was a debate, but it was more like 3 on 1.
A couple people were involved. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So this week we got key inflation reports that came out earlier midweek. And these are the last inflation pieces of data that are going to come out before the Fed meets next week. We are now in the quiet period, or the, what do they call it? The quiet period or the silent period, where the Fed doesn't speak ahead of their meeting. On the consumer side, we got CPI, which CPI is Consumer Price Index, and that measures how the prices of goods and services are moving, either whether they're increasing, how fast they're increasing, or whether they're decreasing, which would be deflation. And that is definitely not happening. So the whole talk about the Fed is that inflation is moderating, meaning not that we're going to see prices go down in really anything, just that we're not going to see them go up as fast as they had. So August CPI came out. The headline number rose 0.2% month over month, and the core rate rose 0.3% month over month, with the former as expected and core 1/10 hotter than what was expected. So the year over year figures were in line with what was expected. 2.5% year over year for headline inflation. Core inflation still pretty sticky, up 3.2%. So the fly in the ointment, or the problem child for core inflation, is housing cost. And we have housing costs just continuing to skyrocket in this country, primarily due to a lack of inventory and all of the money that was injected into the economy during COVID. Owner's equivalent rent was up 0.5% month over month, 5.4% year over year. So that's what's, pulling that number, keeping that number a little bit elevated. Rent of primary residence saw a 0.4% month over month and 5% year over year increase. And blended rents are still rising by 2 to 3%. Now, rents are expected to continue to moderate. They were rising a lot faster than that. But what happens when you try to get all of the illegal immigrants, somewhere between 10 and 30 million, nobody really knows exactly how many, when you try to get all of those immigrants into permanent housing, and we already have a shortage of housing? The other major contributor to CPI was medical care, where prices did fall for a second month by 1/10 month over month, though they are still up 3% year over year. Insurance prices are still out of control. On the auto insurance side, they rose by 0.6% month over month. Year over year, that increase 16.5%. Vehicle maintenance prices were also up 0.6% month over month, up 4.1% year over year. That's services. On the good side, core prices fell for the third month by 0.2%, down by 1.9 to 1.9% year over year. Goods deflation continues on, offset by persistent gains in services. So we have goods kind of moderating. We have services still going up. On the supply side, August PPI, so now this is Producer Price Index. So this is refers to the input of goods that go into the products that consumers end up buying. So PPI was about in line with expectations when we include the July revisions. The headline rate for PPI was up 1.7% year over year versus 2.1 in July. The core rate grew by 2.4% year over year versus 2.3% in the month before. Energy prices fell almost 1% month over month and are down 8.4% year over year, but still much higher than they were 3 years ago. Goods are coming down while service continues to see upward inflationary pressure. Same line here. And the market tends to care more about CPI than they do about PPI. The weekly employment report that we got out just yesterday, initial jobless claims totaled 230,000, 4,000 more than expected. To discern the trend, we tend to look at the 4-week moving average, which tends to buffer that week-to-week volatility. It came in at 231,000, ticking 1,000 higher than the 230,000 in the week before. Continuing claims came in at 1.85 million as forecast, but up 5,000 week over week. The bottom line for employment, the pace of firings is still pretty modest, but it's on the rise while the rate of hirings remain more muted. The results in unemployment are continuing to push higher. Markets, so far this week, the markets were not spooked by the presidential debate, nor by the inflation numbers. The market pushed higher week to date. So really before the market opens on Friday, the S&P is up 3.2%, the Dow's up 1.37%, and the NASDAQ's up a little more than 4%. Looks like that trend is going to continue to hold today. The pre-markets are pretty well in positive territory. At least the Dow and the S&P are. The NASDAQ is just barely negative, but close to the flat line. So the markets seem undeterred about the data and what's coming because they think that rate cuts are coming next week. And I would agree they're coming. It's just sort of up in the air as to how much. So next week, the data that's on deck is retail sales. We get retail sales on Tuesday, and this is going to give us another clue as to how well the consumer is holding up. It's the last real piece of economic data that the Fed gets before they go into their deliberations about what they will do with interest rates. And of course, the FOMC rate decision comes out on Wednesday, I believe it is, with an updated summary of economic projections. So, the idea is the odds are now a 50-50 chance of a 25 basis cut or a 50 basis point cut for the Fed, which rose dramatically after the data this week. So the market wasn't really deterred with the inflation data, but it seems like economists are really expecting the Fed to read more into what's being said about the inflation data. So now that you're in the know about the recent and upcoming financial issues happening in the present time, we hope that you will learn more about how we can help you integrate those issues into your own stewardship from a financial perspective. but find out more about how we can help you defund darkness with our biblically responsible investment strategy. So we're so glad that our audience is growing. In the last year, we've launched on the CSN network and on the NRB network as well. And so the Financial Issues family is growing. And we want to encourage you to tell your friends and family about the program, about biblically responsible investing, and share the program on social media. So if you're a social media warrior, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, X, Rumble, Truth Social, I feel like I'm Instagram, I feel like I'm...
Did you say YouTube? If we're still on
YouTube, we're still on
never know if we
YouTube.
are.
And Rumble too. So,
yeah, Rumble.
So many different ways, and we are monetized on Rumble. So if you use Rumble at all, go like us, share us, and interact. That will help us out. That's another great way to help us in our year-end strategy. So if you're listening on an outlet that only carries a short version of the show, make sure you have our phone app so you can get all the shows for free when it's convenient for you. For the rest of you, we'll be right back after this break.
It's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. When your investments align with your values, your money speaks for you. Because biblical values matter, even when investing. Learn how to invest biblically and responsibly. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
I started investing close to 30 years ago now. All that time, I had never heard anyone talk about setting up your portfolio in a way that glorifies God. When I first heard about it, I was listening to the radio, a show called Financial Issues. They were teaching people how to honor God with their money. That made a lot of sense to me. I guard my heart, my mind. I watch my mouth, hoping to bring glory to God in everything I do and say. Well, why wouldn't I want to do the same with my money? I decided I wanted my portfolio to glorify God. I became a partner with Financial Issues, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. I want to leave a legacy of godliness for those who are following in my footsteps. Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday, and we're ready to get started with some questions, and I hope my if y'all are hearing background noise, there's a leaf blower right outside right in front of the sign that says on air. Right in my ear, right there in the window.
Shana, I wonder if he'd have an opinion on the Fed's rate cuts next week. We'll have to ask him.
I'm not sure. He's probably too busy working.
You're right.
All right. Well, let's get to the phone calls. We've got Michelle calling from, is that Montana?
I think that's Missouri.
Missouri.
Michelle? Is that correct?
Yeah, MO.
Yeah. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. It is Missouri.
Awesome.
Well, you're live on financial issues.
Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate you and the team continuing to carry the FISM torch. I've been a partner for, I think it's coming up on 8+ years or so.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Thank you.
My question today is about a possible video resource that could provide some insight on, I know I can buy a CD ladder on the Schwab platform. I'm thinking I can do it in a traditional IRA, but when I looked at the FISM videos, there were pages and pages, and after like 10 pages, I quit.
Okay. Yeah, we're one of the things that we're working on the new website launch is a better search engine for the website. So hopefully that'll change. But I don't believe that we have one. So there are lots of discount brokerage platforms out there. There's Schwab, there's Fidelity, there's Vanguard, Interactive Brokers. There's so many different ones. We can't be an expert really on all of them. I don't know that we would actually go through and do that. I don't, just from what I've heard from the automated, hey, we'll build this for you. If they auto renew and things like that, you don't want to get into that, because we're really, the CD ladder, the information that's put up there, that's there on the fixed income side of it, it was really a temporary kind of strategy to take advantage of the inverted yield curve. So the inverted yield curve basically means that short-term rates were higher than mid and long-term rates. And so that's where we were kind of focusing on for the fixed income. That is going to be changing, because as the Fed starts to cut interest rates, we should see the yield curve normalize some, and we should see these short-term rates really start to decrease. We've also made a recent tweak, not really a big change, but to include preferred stocks into the fixed income allocation. So we will put out some guidance, but for now, and it's not going to hurt you to continue that CD ladder. Like if you haven't built the CD ladder up to this point, you can still get some pretty decent rates, probably not 5%, but I would say between 4.5% and 5%, maybe, depending on when you look at it. I would get that done as soon as possible. And it's really easy using their filters. All you really have to do is, you take the money that you're going to allocate into a CD ladder. Let's just say it's $40,000 to make the numbers round and easy. So you're going to divide that up. You're going to divide that by 4. So you're going to deploy $10,000 into 4 different CDs, and you want to stagger them 6 months apart. So you put $10,000 into a 6-month, $10,000 into a 1-year, $10,000 into an 18-month, and $10,000 into a 2-year. Now, traditional CD ladder goes like a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, but 5-year rates are typically higher than 1 year, and that's not what we saw recently. So that's the reason for the variation in our strategy. That way you have money coming due every single 6 months, and we always assume that the longer you go, the higher your rate's going to be. So when that 6-month CD comes due, and I would say that partners have probably had that already happen, when the 6-month comes due, you buy a 2-year CD, which is going to come due 6 months after the last CD in your ladder. And then in another 6 months, you're going to have another CD come due, and then you're going to buy another longer 2-year CD. if you continue on that strategy. So what happens is that, after the first 3 have come due, you've got 4 2-year CDs, hopefully with higher rates, that keep coming due every 6 months. And the good thing about them coming due every 6 months is that you get an opportunity to increase the yield of your fixed income portfolio if you can. So I would say right now, if you have one coming due, if you're just starting, maybe only do 3 maturities. Do a 6-month, a 1-year, and an 18-month, unless you can still get a good 2-year. But then, as those next, in the next 6 months, as people have CDs coming due in their ladder, I would say just start to read the commentary, from a partner perspective and see when and how that modifies just a little bit.
Right. Well, I typically try to watch the show live, and I know we've talked a lot about ladders, but am I correct in thinking that I can do a ladder in a traditional IRA?
Sure, you can do a ladder in any type of account that allows you to.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you think I can just do that through the platform?
Yeah, you should be able to. Yep.
Okay, that's what's been a little confusing to me, because I typically buy my stocks or whatever through there, but that's why I wanted the video to just help me understand and clarify that.
Yeah, I bet Schwab has a video about how to buy CDs. And what I would do is I would just buy them each individually. And the things that you're going to want to look for, you're going to want to make sure that they're FDIC insured. It'll usually say that on there. I personally tend to avoid callable CDs because, especially in a falling interest rate environment. And then you want to look for the highest worst yield. And so you could buy brand new CDs that are just issued, or you could buy them on the secondary market. And I would just buy whichever one has the highest total yield on it. And then just make sure, like if you have a really large portfolio, that you're not concentrating more than the FDIC limit in any one institution.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You've been very helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. We appreciate
Thanks, Michelle.
Your longtime support, 8-year partner. That's great.
Yes, awesome. At least. I've lost count. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
God bless you.
Too. All right. I don't think we have time to do the next caller. We're going to hold Terry over to the next segment after we hear the ag report. But Seth, would you share information about the Bible study?
Sure. I'd be glad to, Shana. Yeah, we had a wonderful time this morning, folks. Every Friday morning we meet at 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Central Time in a conference call format, much like the conference calls that we do for the ministry. So to get the call-in access, it's free. Anybody can join. Just go to financialissues.org to the resources tab, and a couple points down, you'll see join our Bible study, and there's a call number and access code that never changes. It's the same, and you can join us about 6:30 to 7:15 every morning. Shana, we meet and study the Word of God together. So this morning we were in 2 Timothy 2:24 to 26, and we'll be starting 2 Timothy 3 next week. I'm excited for it. It's gonna be good stuff.
Sounds great. Yeah. Speaking of partner conference calls, we've got another one next Thursday, the 19th at noon Central Time. Well, here comes Craig. After Craig, we'll take a break and be right back.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for September 13th. Well, the USDA gave corn traders a bit of a bearish surprise in yesterday's monthly supply and demand report. The USDA pegged the national average yield at 183.6 bushels per acre, which is 1.2 bushels higher than the trade was expecting. That pushed the projected production to 15,186,000,000 bushels, which is 110 million bushels more than what the trade was looking for. December corn ended the day a penny and a quarter higher at $4.06 per bushel. Soybeans were kind of a non-event as the USDA left the projected national average yield unchanged at 53.2 bushels per acre. We did have the September world carryout number come in about 1 million metric tons larger than what the trade was expecting. At the close, November beans were 10 1/4 cents higher, $10.10 3/4. The report didn't include any fresh production numbers for wheat, and the domestic ending stocks number was left unchanged from the August projections. We saw world domestic stocks come in nearly 2 million metric tons above trade expectations expectations. In light of the production problems in the former Soviet Union, that was a surprise and put a little bit of pressure on prices. At the close, Minneapolis December wheat was 5.25 cents higher at $6.21 3/4. Kansas City was 2 cents lower at $5.86 1/4, and Chicago finished 0.75 cents lower at $5.78 1/2. Cotton reacted to a USDA report which showed a lower production number as well as declines in exports and ending stocks compared to the August report. As a result, December futures were 77 cents higher at $70.38. Livestock futures were mixed. We had December live cattle $1.37 higher at $178.60 per hundredweight. October feeder cattle were $2.35 higher, settling at $239.85 per hundred. And the December lean hog futures dropped by 75 cents, ending the day at $71.55 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures were fairly stagnant. At the close, October was down 8 points as they settled at 23.82. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Are you a Christian seeking to align your investments with your faith? I'm Shana Burt, host of the program Financial Issues. During our program, we share valuable information about the financial issues of the day, including how markets and the economy are moving and how public companies are behaving, helping you to make wise decisions with your investments and the money that the Lord has blessed you with. Using biblical standards, we provide you with valuable financial insight based upon Scripture, making it easy for you to invest in a way that aligns with your values. I can assume that most of you have investments in a 401k or IRA, but what I am sure of is most of you have no clue that the companies in your mutual funds may be funding the LGBTQ agenda, pornography, abortion, the list goes on and on. By listening to Financial Issues, you will learn how to get rid of those investments that are dishonoring God.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday, and Terry has been waiting patiently. So let's get to Terry's call. Terry's calling from Nevada. Hi, Terry.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for being such a great service to the community. Thank you. What a blessing you are.
You're welcome. Thank
you, Terry.
My question is, I recently turned 65. I'm still full-time employed, and I have a 401k through my employer. I'm looking at moving some of that from their Fidelity account to the Timothy Fund to be able to work there. But my question is, a prior employer provided me with a pension option form, and this is money that I didn't pay anything into, so it would be 100% taxed if I take it out, or tax on 100% of it. And I'm looking at a number of, or in rounds, $58,000, and looking for godly wisdom on, should I try rolling this over into something with the Timothy Fund? Should I allow it to just default and they send me they have a 50% joint and survivor annuity, so they give me just under $400 a month till I die? and then money to my husband until he passes. I'm just looking for the best, way to invest God's money here.
Mm-hmm. So you said that if you took the monthly payout, it would be $400 a month?
Just under that. Yes, ma'am.
And it has a survivor benefit?
Yes. Yeah, after I pass, then the benefit would be $197.03 until my husband passes. And I'm 65 and he's 63.
So he's younger.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that have you already settled in your mind that you want to do the lump sum, or are you trying to discern between the lump sum and the monthly figure?
I just want to have godly wisdom, and I didn't know if I took the lump sum, I could then just put that in the Timothy plan and do something with it.
Yeah.
And invest it and not worry about taxes every month, because I'm still working. I have a really good job. So even this $400 a month, they're going to tax me on.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the case whether you're working or in retirement. Would the payments start right away at your current age, 65?
Yes, and that's the urgency on this. It's supposed to start October 1st.
Yeah. So there's a lot of options to weigh when you're looking at taking a lump sum versus a pension, a monthly payout. And when I just really quickly did the numbers, I looked at, if you take $400 a month and you annualize that, it's about a little over 8% of the lump sum. So typically we say anytime the monthly payment is more than 6%, you should really look strongly at maybe considering the monthly option, especially since it does have a survivor benefit. But what also weighs into that is, nobody knows how many days they have left. But if you think about your own health, the longevity in your family and things like that, the risk to taking the monthly payment is that, once both of you pass, there's nothing left. So if you both die early, then, the insurance company basically wins because they get the rest of the money that wasn't paid out to you. Whereas if you take the lump sum, it then becomes yours, and it can be an asset that generates income for you or that you can pass along. So, I mean, kind of in a nutshell, those are the main things to think about. I always would just say, consider it. Over 8% payout is pretty decent. But if you do decide to take the lump sum, I certainly would roll it over into an IRA. So wherever you do that, that's going to help you to defer the taxes even more. You just open an IRA wherever you want to have it, and then you're able to buy whichever investments you want. So if you do it at Timothy Plan, you're going to be limited to only the mutual funds because they're a mutual fund company. You can't get the ETFs in there or anything like that. If you open the account at a discount brokerage that allows you to buy the Timothy funds, you can still then get the Timothy funds and you can get the ETFs, which are, and follow along with our model.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you very much. You've been very helpful.
All right, Terry. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Terry.
We appreciate your question. And Terry, you'll get one of those T-shirts.
Enjoy
Great.
it,
Thank
Terry.
you.
Rock it well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
God bless.
Well,
All right. Let's finish up. I know we've got some questions from the website.
Let's do it, Shana. Jean is up first here, 54 years old, saying, "Hi, Shana. I was planning on retiring early in less than a year and was wondering," this brings back our conversation from earlier in the week, Shana, on retiring early. "I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how a person would handle my money tax-wise, like changing like changing $104,000 pre-tax money to a Roth. What money to draw out first? Should it be the IRA, the Roth, beneficial and investment accounts? Do I do it myself? I've been a partner a long time, over 10 years, and I've been listening since 2009. Plan on investing my 401k following the FISM strategy." That's awesome. What do you have for Jean, Shana?
Yeah, so I really can't speak as to how any financial advisor other than myself or Jason would handle distributions, but distribution planning is a a very popular topic because, typically as people prepare for retirement, they end up with a lot of different accounts. They might have a Roth, they might have 401k, they might have just a regular investment account, so on and so forth. And you probably have multiple streams of income, some of which may be taxable, some which may not. And then you may also have, you also may be charitably inclined. So you may be thinking about, how am I going to give now? Do I want to do like a final tithe? Do I want to leave money? Do I want to deploy money into the kingdom when I go home to be with the Lord? So there's really a lot of topics to cover. I think that conventional financial planning wisdom is to leave the money in the IRA as long as you can so you can avoid paying taxes on it. However, I swim against the current on that one because I believe taxes are going to be higher in the future than what they are today. I'm more in favor of maximizing, especially if you can get money out in the 12% tax bracket, to do that now. I would be strategic in the way that I planned it. So, what we do when we're planning with clients is we look at all of their streams of income, we look at their assets, we look at their current tax bracket, and we try to come up with a strategic plan. So part of that is, when you have money in qualified plans like IRAs, when you turn 70 and a half, you can, Jean's only 54 right now, so you're a little ways off from this, but at 70 and a half, you can start getting money out of your IRA account without any taxes by giving the money. So you can start to use your IRA as kind of your giving fund and pay the best tax rate of all, which is 0, to get portions of that money out. I personally would leave the Roth alone as long as possible. So I would look at trying to put together a plan to keep your taxable income in the 12% bracket. I would even consider going, if you have large amounts in qualified pre-tax accounts, I would even consider going up into the 22% bracket to move some money out, either by way of a Roth conversion or just a regular investment account. It just depends on what all the assets, current assets that you have. And then, you also want to look at when to take Social Security, how to maximize that. That's another place where I tend to swim against the current on that as well. For most people, I think it's probably better to wait until 70 to start drawing on Social Security, especially if you have a spouse whose benefit is less than your Social Security benefit. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, managing tax bracket. We only have really this year and next year left where we have some relative certainty about what taxes are going to look like. Beyond that, at the end of 2025, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, President Trump's tax plan, expires, and it either has to be made permanent, continued, or changed. So the current election is going to factor a good bit into that. So we are getting sort of late in the year into the starting to get into the fourth quarter. So I really would talk to my tax person, find out, how much room do you have in the 12% bracket. I would consider at least converting that amount to a Roth or moving it into just a regular non-qualified account, and then, continuing discussions from there. So if you are considering hiring a person to help you with that, I would interview them. I would ask them to explain their philosophy on income distribution planning and see if it lines up with what you believe to be true. I think that's all we have time for today.
Might be all. Yep. Always comes.
Yeah, it does. Well, folks, we're at the end of the program today. We hope that you enjoyed it. We hope that you are encouraged, and we hope that you learned something. And we hope that you will share what you're learning with other people. That's the power of compounding, which is the theme for our year-end campaign, which you're going to start to hear lots more about next week. Well, we hope that you will come back next week because, Lord willing, we will be here to help remind you that time's getting short, the master's coming back, and there's going to be a test about how we handle the resources we were trusted to manage. And we want to be here to help you be found a good and faithful steward. We hope you have a wonderful day of worship on Sunday, and we'll see you back here next week for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.